Scientists say it all started 14 billion years ago with a single event so powerfully chaotic that it defies comprehension. But then in the blink of an eye, cosmologically speaking, something amazing happened. Out of the chaos, order began to take shape, giving complexity and meaning to all of creation. Just as in nature, we citizens of our planet have a basic need to create order and structure in our surroundings. We call this process design. And the best place on earth to study the design of cities is right here in Savannah. Savannah was founded in 1733 when General James Oglethorpe stepped off the boat, climbed up Yamacraw Bluff to found the first city of Georgia. Most people think the squares are what makes Savannah, Savannah, but it's really the ward. The ward is made up of 4 tithing blocks, which is where houses were to be built, and 4 trust blocks, where civic buildings were to be built, and those surrounded the square. Savannah offers 3 important lessons for designing cities. First, to enable mobility and accessibility for the city. That's not just walking and bicycling and riding buses and driving. It also includes upward mobility and accessibility to jobs. Second is to enable diversity. That means diversity of all things, diversity of buildings, diversity of uses, diversity of people. And third is the ability of a city to change over time. That means changing buildings, changing land uses. Oglethorpe could not have imagined Savannah as it is today, but it depends on his design created in 1733. Most cities in Georgia don't have the advantages that Savannah has. They grew piecemeal at a crossroads, at a railroad depot, or at a courthouse square. These cities must reimagine themselves to create their own future.
In 2011, we determined downtowns need more technical assistance, customized assistance, not one size fits all. And so we developed the Georgia Downtown Renaissance Practicum course, where we bring students together and assist communities with whatever challenges they're facing through design and planning assistance.
Griffin, like many other cities in the South, were established along the railroad. So that presents a set of challenges because oftentimes the railroad bisects a city, a neighborhood, a community.
We've always heard the saying, the wrong sides of the tracks. And in this case, we literally have a north and south side that's divided by the tracks. So the students' work and design, their approach was to absolutely try to connect the north and south sides and make them a higher performing asset. You have your assets, maybe they're not the highest performing assets at this moment, but building from what you are and who you are, that is the trick and that is the secret.
If we come back here in 10 years, hopefully we will see a beautiful linear park along the railroad. We'll see a more atmosphere conducive to pedestrians crossing the railroad corridor. It removes a physical barrier that bisects this city first and foremost. But I think the secondary and maybe more important barrier it removes, I think is maybe a socio-economic barrier. The power of design is to bring people together. It becomes a point of connection rather than a point of division for this community.
Savannah had it easy. Oglethorpe laid out a plan, and all they had to do was build it. Griffin has a different situation. A railroad goes right through the middle of town. Here we are in Sandy Springs, and the city's trying to figure out how to build a new town center that's not oriented only to automobiles, but is oriented to people.
Sandy Springs has never had a town center. It was a collection of 1960s, 70s, and 80s strip malls mainly. It kind of evolved that way without any particular plan. Sandy Springs has a blank canvas to work with. I mean, if you've got a historical downtown, your choices are limited. And that's actually helpful because you've got something that you can start with. When we start with a blank canvas, we have to ask ourselves, what do we want to become? We talked about that if we just built a sterile collection of government offices, we would have lost a major opportunity. This is not only the heart of Sandy Springs, it's where the heartbeat will occur. It's where the community will gather so that we can have a place where we can do community.
Town green, or a town center, gives the town a character, and the people that live there a kind of character. It makes them different from other cities, and the design of it then becomes really important.
This has to be organic. It has to come from Sandy Springs. We can't go somewhere else like Decatur or Woodstock or some of the other communities that have done some amazing things to their city center. We can't replicate those.
You design a framework for a town, and it's for a future that you can't predict. But the changes that occur within it will always be within that framework. That is a huge undertaking. Other towns throughout the metro area and across Georgia needs to do the same thing. Take the initiative to retrofit and make places that people want to live. Redesigning a city is always a challenge. Sometimes it has to do with physical design of buildings, landscapes, streetscapes. At other times it has to do with attracting new residents to live and work and play in an environment that they enjoy being in. A challenge to smaller towns in Georgia is attracting and retaining young people.
The Game Changers is a dynamic program through an organization called Georgia Forward. And the Game Changers brings multiple awesome individuals from around the state together to combat issues that are affecting different cities around the state of Georgia.
The purpose of Game Changers was just to come give us additional ideas how to make our community better. It's always good to have a group of outsiders come and look at your community and appraise your community, especially with them being young people.
Dublin has been doing a good job with their physical infrastructure, but now they're taking the next step of trying to attract a new population to the city, particularly millennials, and really build a new kind of city.
Dublin is one of Georgia's oldest cities. It's rich in heritage and it's rich in so many different untapped resources.
You've got to check your ego at the door. The world is complex, okay? And if you want to make improvements, you've got to have a plan. We're very, very fortunate that we were chosen by Game Changers to come here, and I think we're going to see tremendous benefits.
There are many different ways to design cities. In Dublin, they brought people from the outside to advise the community on how to attract more people. But here in Augusta, instead of bringing people from the outside, they're designing from within. The Makerspace movement is really a process of design, and design is always best when there are multiple people helping each other.
Everybody thinks that the clubhouse is about technology. Really, the clubhouse is about creativity. At the clubhouse, we work with entrepreneurs and developers to give them an opportunity to collaborate with each other, and once they do, we try to help them provide some sort of structure and backbone for their businesses.
Georgia is a leader in the Makerspace movement, and every program is unique.
Seven Hills Makerspace is really unique. We are housed in a historic Mason lodge. We have all kinds of equipment, everything from electronics, 3D printing, laser cutting, down to a full working wood shop, and then also a sewing and crafting area.
A makerspace, to me, is sort of a new chapter of economic development. I would love to think what might be improved or what ideas could be born in a makerspace that could literally be applied outside the doors to make our community better. If you have this sort of thing going on, you really need to get your antenna up and figure out what is it you can do to help, and that's exactly where I find us as a community.
Cities have cultural institutions to support the visual arts, support music, and so forth. Really, technology is yet another cultural institution that cities need to support. From my standpoint, I think that everybody is a creative individual in some way, and it's when we get everybody together that we have the ability to design the cities that we want.
As we have seen, towns in Georgia are designing their future in many different ways. An important conclusion is this: begin with what you have. At Ellis Square, Savannah began with what it had. Ellis Square was one of the original squares in Savannah as part of Oglethorpe's plan. From the middle of the 19th century until 1954, it was the farmer's market. 1954, a parking deck replaced the square. It took until 2005 until the city decided the parking deck had to go and Ellis Square was redesigned. Ellis Square is important to Savannah's future because it maintains the tie to the past. With the redesign of Ellis Square, Savannah continues to pay homage to Oglethorpe's original plan. Remember, designed for accessibility and mobility, designed for diversity, designed for change over time. And most importantly, begin with what you have. Begin with what you have in your city and achieve excellence by design.